Good morning, everybody. Hope your coffee's as good as mine. It has been a hell of a morning. So much news going on. So much is happening. It is just insane. President Biden has clinched. He is now the official nominee. We have that. We've got Robert Hur's testimony. We've got other breaking news that's going on that's just incredibly important around the world and in Washington, D.C. So let's get at it. Let's get after it. Good morning, everybody. We have got some breaking news that has just flown under the radar. There was so much happening. I understand why. But this is a big effing deal. This is really a big deal. And as Greg here says, please hit the thumbs up button, if you would. The sooner, the better. That offers this show to other people that are popping onto YouTube, and it recommends it on their algorithm. We'll get more people in the live feed, and we need as many people to hear what I have to say today as possible. This is a big day for news, starting with this person, Cassidy Hutchinson. You all remember when I pull her face up. Cassidy Hutchinson has been offering testimony to Jack Smith on a couple of different issues. One of the really important issues is, what did Trump know on January 6th, and when did he know it? She's offered testimony about meetings that happened after Trump was, you remember the big dust up where he tried to grab the wheel and had the Secret Service had to fight him up for control over their Tahoe, their Suburban. It was just nuts stuff going on. Well, before that had happened, Trump was in a tent preparing to go on stage. This is the article from Politico talking about what I'm talking about. Now, the Secret Service agents have pretty much, closed ranks around Trump. You remember all the deleted text messages, and nobody's testifying. Well, that's stopped. That's over. The dam has broken. Trump's driver, his Secret Service agent, his driver, has come out and confirmed what Cassidy Hutchinson told us occurred on January 6th. You see this picture. This is a great article from Politico, folks. I highly recommend it. Trump was informed of prohibited items in January 6th rally crowd. His driver testified. By prohibited items, they mean weapons. What Cassidy Hutchinson told us was that on January 6th, Donald Trump was told, the crowd is armed. We've got a problem. The crowd is armed. Trump responded, get rid of the magnetometers. Just let them in. They're not here to hurt me. Just let them in. He knew this crowd was armed. He knew they had sharpened flagpoles. He knew they had guns. And he directed them to the Capitol anyways. This is incredibly important testimony that goes to his state of mind. It was absolutely 100% planned. and Cassidy Hutchinson, they have been calling her a liar. You've got Tony Bobulinski, all of Jimmy Jordan and James Comer's witnesses have all been proven liars and plants, and Russian spies and Chinese spies, and they're being arrested for offering false testimony. One of their witnesses is Tony Bobulinski, and Tony Bobulinski is irate at Cassidy Hutchinson because she gave testimony that Bobulinski met with Mark Meadows and before his testimony to Congress, and Mark Meadows gave him documents regarding his testimony, and Bobulinski said, she's a liar. Well, you've got Secret Service that's now backing Cassidy Hutchinson up on her testimony, and it's just getting interesting, folks. It is just getting interesting. This is all out of Jack Smith and his Washington, D.C. January 6th case. That is a criminal case, folks. That is a big effing deal. It is. As soon as the Supreme Court hears testimony in April and tells Donald Trump that, no, you do not have absolute immunity, because if I give you absolute immunity right before an election, I have to give Joe Biden absolute immunity, and we're not doing that. Oh, man, I hope your coffee's hitting as good as mine is. Then that case goes back to D.C. for trial. And it is not a long trial. This is not a difficult trial. They have the communications now. Jack Smith has everything lined up. He has not gone on vacation, folks. He is still nailing this out. But this is just one thing that happened yesterday to Donald Trump is we found out that his Secret Service agents, their wall of silence has broken. They are 100% confirming other testimony, and it is disastrous for Trump. Didn't get much better in the Robert Hur hearing. That was great to watch. It really was. Although some of it was frustrating. Little Jimmy, I lost my jacket, Jordan, really was doing his best yesterday, which wasn't much. Every time a Democrat would speak, every time they had their time, every time they would try to put something in the record for unanimous consent, Jimmy Jordan would scream over them. It was a little difficult to watch, but the Democrats handled it well. They just kept speaking and finishing their sentences and then yielded their time back. But the point of that was there are transcripts for these hearings, and people were watching. They get the numbers fed to them. As soon as these hearings go live, Jimmy Jordan gets told, hey, we've got an audience size of X amount watching. You need to do what you need to do to control the situation. You need to control the narrative. And part of that was when Democrats would put forward something for unanimous consent, which would be a piece of evidence or that they want into the congressional record as part of the transcript, they would be explaining what that evidence is. Rather than allow them to explain what that evidence is so that the audience can hear what they're talking about, it was usually something damning for Donald Trump. He would allow them to say, I would like to have this entered as unanimous consent. It is testimony to, and then he would say, any objections? Just talk right over them in the middle of talking. Any objections? Is that okay? It's entered in the record, to drown out what they were trying to say so that it doesn't make it into the transcript. It was just pathetic. It's a childish maneuver. You don't stop the information from coming, but they're in trouble, folks. They just don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle this situation. And this is what you get. Rather than an actual hearing with people actually testifying, you get these kind of games. And it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Forgive me, allergies are going crazy. The damn trees are fornicating all over the place out here. It's driving me crazy. Spring has sprung. Spring has sprung. You folks remember the show we did on Robert Hur when his report came out? And I explained his report was written the way it was for a reason. This was a rope-a-dope. This was a rope-a-dope attempt to try to get Merrick Garland to touch that report. It broke DOJ guidelines. I told you this weeks ago. It broke DOJ guidelines, and it was bait. See, one of two things would happen. Either they would let this salacious report go through untouched, or they would redact. And if they redacted, the Republicans would run to a microphone. They would hold this hearing, and the message in this hearing would be, what did they not want you to know? What did they hide from you? They're hiding that Joe Biden has lost it. And they would just leak everything that Robert Hur said. Well, it turns out Robert Hur was a liar in his summation when he talked about Joe Biden and his memory. And he got busted. He got called out for it yesterday. And, that I'm not defending Merrick Garland here because I want Merrick Garland replaced. Enough of this. Enough of this. Republicans cannot do investigations. No more appointing any Republican to do any investigations, period. They're unethical. Robert Hur lied. He flat out lied, and I'm about to show it to you. He got called out yesterday for it. And Merrick Garland should have damn well known better than to make Robert Hur the special counsel. But he did it anyways because they have no spine. And this is, I will tell you, Joe Biden's Achilles heel. He has been in DC for so long that he looks at these Republicans and his overall picture of them is a political party that operates within rules. And they have not operated within rules since the 1980s. They just haven't. And for whatever reason, we Democrats have been very slow on the uptake to that. I'm going to explain it all to you here in just a minute. But this is why I love Adam Schiff. This is why I really love Adam Schiff. This is Adam Schiff yesterday. Let's kick the ball off with this. This is from Adam Schiff's Twitter. We're going to share this for you. This is his exchange with Robert Hur.
Also understand DOJ policy that you are to take care not to prejudice the interests of the subject of an investigation, right?
That is generally one of the interests that DOJ policy requires that prosecutors respect.
And it was your obligation to follow that policy in this report, was it not?
It was also my obligation to write a confidential report for the Attorney General explaining completely my
what
decision.
You did write was deeply prejudicial to me.
This is the only thing I just wanted to point out here. I froze it just to point this one thing out. This is the only time that Robert Hur admits that this report was supposed to be confidential. Like I was telling you, Robert Hur wrote this report. It was not supposed to be for your eyes or my eyes. He wrote it in such an offensive manner, and Adam Schiff is pointing out here that he broke DOJ policy when he wrote this report to bait Merrick Garland into touching his report, into redacting, to doing a Bill Barr, into redacting or rewriting this report. And they didn't take the bait. They took this report right on the chin, and they're fighting it out in public. And it's fantastic. It is fantastic. So yeah, let's continue on with what Adam Schiff says here. But pay attention to that. This is the only time that Robert Hur in his entire testimony says this was supposed to be a confidential report, and he says it like 5 times.
The president, you say it wasn't political, and yet you must have understood. You must have understood the impact of your words. You must have understood the impact of your decision to go beyond the specifics of a particular document, to go to the very general, to your own personal, prejudicial, subjective opinion of the president, one you knew would be amplified by his political opponent, one you knew that would influence a political campaign. You had to understand that. And you did it anyway. And you did it anyway. And let me just go to some of the differences here between the president's conduct and Mr. Trump's. In the superseding indictment, on page 3, it says that Mr. Trump suggested that his attorney falsely represent to the FBI and grand jury that he did not have documents called for by the grand jury subpoena. You didn't find anything like that with respect to Mr. Biden, did you?
Congressman, I do not have the Trump indictment in front of me, but I need to address something that you said in your prior question. What you are suggesting is that I needed to provide a different version of my report that would be fit for public release. That is nowhere in the rules. I was to prepare a confidential report that was comprehensive and thorough of an
What is in the
Adam Schiff did not infer that there. He didn't infer that you need to write a separate report. No, he inferred that you needed to follow DOJ guidelines. And I will get to that just as soon as this is over. We're going to talk about that DOJ guideline. That is not what Adam Schiff said. And watch Robert Hur dodge here. He knows what he did. He is not a babe in the woods. He is not a babe in the woods. I'm going to show you his background here in a minute, and you're going to understand clearly exactly how bad this is.
In the rules, Mr. Hur, what is in the rules is you don't gratuitously do things to prejudice the subject of an investigation when you're declining to prosecute. You don't gratuitously add language that you know will be useful in a political campaign. You were not born yesterday. You understood exactly what you were doing. It was a choice. You certainly didn't have to include that language. You could have said vis-a-vis the documents that were found at the university, the president did not recall. There is nothing more common. You know this, I know this. There is nothing with a witness of any age when asked about events that are years old to say, I do not recall. Indeed, they're instructed by their attorney to do that if they have any question about it. You understood that. You made a choice. That was a political choice. It was the wrong choice. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Hur just lost his mind right there. He actually spent half of his next question from a Republican in full freak out mode about being addressed on it. What Adam Schiff is talking about. They took 7 million documents from Joe Biden. Not 7 million confidential documents. No. When Joe Biden cooperated 100%, they went into his residences, his offices, and they took everything. That is the power of the Department of Justice. And they went through his personal information 1 page at a time. Because of that power, because of that ability, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a 100% one great school marm that bakes cupcakes for your church, drives your school kids' school bus to functions. I don't care if you are a Mother Teresa volunteer. If I took 7 million of your personal documents and had time, money, resources, a paycheck to pay me to go through your documents, I could build a narrative to wreck your life. I could. Any one of you. I don't care how clean you live. That's the power of the Department of Justice. So the Department of Justice has guidelines regarding this. When you investigate a person, you investigate a crime. It is not your job to destroy someone. And they specifically have guidelines that say, do not interfere with their business. Do not interfere with their public life and their reputation, especially if you are declining to prosecute that person. Robert Hur knows this, and he did it anyways. He broke DOJ guidance. It came out yesterday in the hearing that the White House counsel sent a letter to Robert Hur and Merrick Garland and said, we have read your report. You need to rewrite your report voluntarily because you broke DOJ guidelines. But what's worse is he lied when he did it. Not only did he break DOJ guidelines, but he lied. Remember the big salacious thing that came out on page 209 of his report. The page 1, sentence 1 is, we're not charging, nothing here meets the level of criminal charges. We're not charging Joe Biden. That's sentence 1. Page 209. Well, the reason we couldn't charge him is because Joe Biden's old and he just couldn't remember things, and the jury would be sympathetic, and we would lose. We would lose. So yeah, that's why we didn't charge him. Back on page 209, and that's what the Republicans ran with until the State of the Union, in which case now it's jacked up Joe. Now it's jacked up Joe. He's not old and doddering and anymore. He's jacked up Joe. He's on drugs. But then in the hearing, they tried to float the idea that he was acting like he was confused as a defense. It's all a big political game. And the other narrative that they tried to push in this hearing was that Donald Trump, the DOJ went after Hillary Clinton and her emails. The DOJ went after Donald Trump, and the DOJ went after Joe Biden. The only person that got charged was Donald Trump because, we're Republicans and we're victims. These are all the same. They kept saying that over and over again. These are all the same. These three things are all the same. No, they are not even close to the same. And I absolutely love that Democrats actually just nailed Robert Hur, nailed the Republicans for trying to insinuate that. Donald Trump is the only person that hid these documents, that did not cooperate. Joe Biden turned over 7 million of his own personal documents. Take them. Take all you want. Go ahead. Go through my house. Go through my offices. Go through anything you want. I'll sign off on it. Do it. Because we want these documents to be where they're supposed to be. Robert Hur pointed out in his report that Joe Biden has staff that are responsible for making sure these documents get where they're supposed to go. And more than likely, it wasn't Joe Biden himself that are responsible for these. And when we did find the handful of classified documents that we did find, it kind of looked like it was a mistake. Suburban Housewife says, Joe's memory remembers what America is all about. Joe's memory is fine. Correct. Robert Hur had to stipulate this in his testimony yesterday, that when they did find classified documents, it didn't look like it was a project. It didn't look like they were intended to be stored together. It was like a one-off document out of a bunch of other documents. It was like one page mixed in with it. It looked like a mistake. Robert Hur said that himself. He had to stipulate that himself. So the Republicans' narrative that this was all just, this just shows it's a hit job, that Robert Hur says there's no crime. There is no crime. Nothing chargeable here. There's no crime. The Republicans' response is, well, let's talk about all the crime. And they kept pretending over and over again. What happened with Trump is the same thing with Biden, and we're victims. We're victims. And Biden's really just old and losing it, but he's actually super jacked up and smart, and it's really just a strategy. I mean, they were all over the place, all over the frickin' place. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. This is Rep. Madeline Dean talking about Joe Biden's memory.
Was not the case with Donald Trump. You have a copy of your report today, don't you, in front of you?
I do.
You read a portion
Are
of
you
it
getting the
for me?
audio off of this?
Your words, it is page 11, starting on line 3, beginning with the words, unlike the evidence involving Mr. Biden. Would you read the next few sentences?
Unlike the evidence involving Mr. Biden, the allegations set forth in the indictment of Mr. Trump, if proven, would present serious aggravating facts.
Keep going.
This goes to their narrative. This goes to their narrative that they were trying to say that everything that was, they're victims. Trump's the only one that's getting picked on. They're all the same. Everything's the same. Hillary Clinton got a pass. Joe Biden gets a pass, but we're Republicans, so we're picked on. We're picked on.
Congresswoman, I'm happy to have you read the words in my report.
Well, it's your report, so I think it actually is more fitting that you read those.
Most notably, after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite.
Keep going.
According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for many months, but he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it.
You may stop there. Thank you. That was not the case with Donald Trump. You have a copy of your report today, don't you, in front of you?
I do.
Would you read a portion of it for me?
I absolutely love that. She sat there and she made him read everything that was different about Donald Trump, where he instructed his attorneys to lie, where he hid the documents, where he moved the documents, where he deleted security footage to hide these documents. Everything that Jack Smith is going to send him to prison for, she made him go through it. Now that we run that audio, let's see if the other audio will play. Sometimes, I don't know what it is. It's new hitch with the streaming platform. It's weird. Let's see if this first audio will play now.
In reporting. Thank you. I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Kiley.
You getting audio?
Mr. Hur, why did the White House ask you to remove parts of the report? What was the reason they gave?
On an important point. Very sadly, your report on page 208 says that Mr. Biden couldn't come up with the date, the year of his son, Beau Biden's death, when in fact in the transcript it shows that you asked him the month. And do you know what he said, Mr. Hur? He said, oh God, May 30th. Would you like to correct the record? His memory was pretty firm on the month and the day.
Congresswoman, I don't believe that's correct with respect to the transcript, but if you could refer me to a specific page, I'd be happy to look.
I've read.
Page 82. It was page 82. It was page 82. I have page 82. Did y'all get the audio clearly on that one? I can play it again if you didn't get the audio clearly on that one. He lied. You remember on it's actually page 209 of his report. He says that, I would have a terrible time in convicting on this because, the audience would just, the jury would just hear that he just couldn't remember things. He couldn't remember things like when his own son died. You remember we had a whole show on that. I still to this day cannot tell you the date that my dad died. It's common. And a lot of people were like, this was very traumatic for me. I can tell you to the minute when my son died. And I showed you people that actually remember that. We had a story from a woman that was sitting holding her son's hand, and she could tell you to the exact second when her son died because she was holding his hand, listening to him breathe, staring at the clock. And that's the image seared in her head. But for many of us who have lost loved ones, especially over time, you just don't remember the dates. And Robert Hur said he couldn't remember. He lied. He lied. This is page 82. I'm going to read it to you, folks. I'm going to read it to you. This is page 82. He said, couldn't remember when his son died. Some background before I read this. This is page 82. This interview was conducted on October 8th. Just some background on what's going on October 8th. October 7th, Hamas attacked Israel. The President of the United States is getting briefings all night long on what Hamas did, the slaughters, the rapes. He's meeting with the military. He's meeting with the CIA. He's meeting with State Department so that they can get a push out to Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Iraq. They're even talking to Iran. He made arrangements for the USS Eisenhower and the USS Gerald R. Ford to go to the Med. Joe Biden's working. He's got stuff on his plate when he's doing this interview on October 8th. Sat down for 5 hours with Robert Hur. While that's going on, just so you know. And they're talking, Robert Hur's asking him about context, about what was going on with him at the time that he had these documents at the Penn Center. And Mr. Robert Hur says, so during this time when you were living at the Chain Bridge Road address and there were documents relating to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden Institute or the Cancer Moonshot or your book, where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on? That's part of an overarching conversation about what were you doing at the time? President Biden's answering the question about what you were doing at the time. President Biden has a stutter, folks. He does. You don't know much about it because he has worked his whole life at overcoming that disability. He doesn't stutter much in public. He doesn't. But when you are in a situation where you have a high stress national security issue on your plate, you are in a 5-hour interview over some political nonsense, you're being as open and often as possible, you're going to stutter. So his response starts with a stutter. President Biden says, well, they wrote that in the transcript. I don't know. This is what, 2017, 2018, that area we're talking about? Mr. Hur responds, yes, sir. President Biden responds, and this is important. Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. Beau Biden died of cancer. That's what was going on with him at the time. And so it was. And by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period. So what he's saying is, I'm dealing with my son, and politically, I have people telling me to run for president. This is 2016. Remember that 2016, 2017 period he's talking about. The campaign was in 2016. So he continues. I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. Remember, President Obama came out and said, Joe, don't run. Don't run. You're getting older. Don't run. He just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did, talking about Hillary Clinton. President Obama backed Hillary Clinton in 2016 over Joe Biden. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I may run for office again. But if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so that was happening. Though what month did Bo die? God, it was May 30th. God, it was May 30th. So yeah, Hur lied. He just lied. And it's in the transcript. He answered the question directly. And Hur wrote it in the report that he couldn't remember. Juanita Mingo says Ken Buck is leaving the House on March 22nd now. Not waiting till November. We might be able to get the House back with a special election. That's Friday's show, folks. Appreciate the support, William Duggan. I appreciate you guys. I really do appreciate all the support. So yeah, Joe Biden answered his question. That question that on page 209, he said he couldn't possibly prosecute him because he couldn't even remember when his son died. Yeah, he remembered. And it's actually worse. We have some video here from Eric Swalwell in exchange with Robert Hur. That goes more to this.
I now want to turn you to the transcript and day 1, page 47. You said to President Biden, you appear to have a photographic understanding and recall of the House. Did you say that to President Biden?
Those words do appear on page 47 of the transcript.
Photographic is what you said. Is that right?
That word does appear on page 47 of the transcript.
Never appeared in your report, though. Is that correct? The word photographic?
That does not appear in my report.
I now want.
We're going to watch that again, but I need you to understand. This was a hit job, folks. This was 100% a hit job. This was a rope-a-dope. I need you to understand that. This was a rope-a-dope. This was a hit job to get Merrick Garland to put his hands on this report, to redact, to create that narrative for these Republicans. This hearing was supposed to be very different. But God bless Joe Biden and the fact that they underestimate him and his understanding of politics. He took this report on the chin. The day before Robert Hur was supposed to give this testimony, he resigned from the DOJ. Why? If you give testimony as an employee of the DOJ, you have to follow their regulations. If you don't, the DOJ can take action against you. If you resign, you can break all the DOJ policies you want, because now Robert Hur is testifying as private citizen Robert Hur. And the DOJ can't touch him for his testimony. So yeah, Robert Hur resigns. I'm going to explain to you just how political this guy is here in just a second. He resigns the day before his testimony from the DOJ so that the DOJ cannot regulate him. They cannot touch him. But Joe Biden, being Joe Biden, and thank God they underestimate him and don't understand exactly how good he is at politics, he released the entire transcript of these conversations, of these interviews, all of them. He proved Robert Hur a liar. because the big gotcha that the Republicans had disappeared like a fart in a hurricane. See, the White House counsel sent a letter to Robert Hur that said, change your report. They did. They also sent that letter to Merrick Garland, which they did not do. They refused to do it. The reasoning they gave behind it was, one, he lied in his assumption, and two, it goes against DOJ policy. And I want to talk about that for just a second. Again, when you were investigated by the FBI and the DOJ, they can destroy you. I don't care how good you are. What constrains them from doing that are their own rules. And one of the rules is when you do a declination, which is what this report was, it was a declination, a declining to prosecute. You do not disparage at all the subject. That is not your job in the DOJ. You are not here to wreck people. You investigate crimes. And if they did not commit a crime, you don't touch them. Period. Robert Hur did not do that. Robert Hur wrote a hit job that was meant to be a rope-a-dope, that was meant to get them to touch that report, and they didn't do it. They didn't fall for it. They took it on the chin, and then they left it for us to decide by releasing the actual transcripts of the conversations that happened and proved Robert Hur was a liar. That is what happened yesterday, folks. That is what happened yesterday. Now let's watch this video again.
I now want to turn you to the transcript and day 1, page 47. You said to President Biden, you appear to have a photographic understanding and recall of the House. Did you say that to President Biden?
Those words do appear on page 47 of the transcript.
Photographic is what you said. Is that right?
That word does appear on page 47 of the transcript.
Never appeared in your report, though. Is that correct? The word photographic?
That does not appear in my.
No, you wrote that he couldn't remember shit. That's why I couldn't prosecute him. That was crap. That was a lie. They couldn't prove intent. They knew damn well he cooperated. They knew damn well that he had staff that handled these documents. Republicans acted as though Joe Biden never had a secretary. Joe Biden didn't have military adjutants that brought him documents and took documents away, which is the way it works. Joe Biden doesn't go to a filing cabinet and rifle through it and, oh, I need this, and then go to his desk and then, no. There are people that check these things in and out. And it was plainly obvious from the way they found these documents that it was a one-off here, it was a one-off there. And the thing that they're really trying to make a mess about is his ghostwriter's notes. He's allowed to share this information with his ghostwriter, but the notes are supposed to be kept in a SCIF. Joe Biden told him about those notes. He's the one that told him, hey, you know what? I talked to we better make sure this writer doesn't have anything. He cooperated fully. He didn't tell his lawyer to lie. He didn't hide things. He didn't delete footage. None of that. But yeah, that's what came out yesterday. But here's the thing. Republicans should never be appointed to do an investigation again, and this is why. This is why. You remember the show we did over Ken Starr, where I talked about his prosecutorial malfeasance? They took Susan McDougal and held her in jail for 1.5 years because she absolutely refused to perjure herself and read what they wanted her to say. They did the same thing with Webb Hubble. Remember, I told you, the DOJ can go through every bit of your life. Webb Hubble did nothing wrong. They charged Webb Hubble and prosecuted Webb Hubble over his billing when he in his law office when he was a lawyer. Had nothing to do with Whitewater. They said you overbilled a client, and they prosecuted him for it. These are the jackasses. Ken Starr here on the left. He's dead. See this guy right here? Yeah, these are who the Republicans want. This is Brett Kavanaugh. That was Ken Starr's right-hand man. He's now a Supreme Court justice. This is what the Republicans do. They take the most unethical people that are willing to be complete political hacks, and they put them in power. And we keep letting them run investigations. But wait, it gets better. This is Alex Azar. He was in the Trump administration. This is all Ken Starr's guys. But I want to point you out to the guy sitting here on the far right. Can anybody guess? You folks are so politically astute. Can anybody guess who the guy that worked for Ken Starr is sitting on the couch on the far right? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. That, my friends, was this guy. This smarmy little turd right here. That was Rod Rosenstein. You remember Rod Rosenstein? Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Yeah, he was not a balls and strikes guy. Remember, he was Jeff Sessions' Deputy Attorney General that took over when Jeff Sessions got resigned because he wouldn't do what Rod Rosenstein would do. Trump wanted Jeff Sessions to go after their own. Jeff Sessions had no problem going after Democrats. He didn't. He had no problem with that. But this was Donald Trump demanding that Jeff Sessions go after their own. This moron, James Comey. Jeff Sessions wouldn't do it. Rod Rosenstein would. He's an old Ken Starr lackey from way back. He's got no problem with political hit jobs. He's the guy that went after Comey. He's also the guy that went after Deputy FBI Director McCabe. But, Rod Rosenstein didn't do that himself. You need a team. JBO says, wow, you amaze me with the information you dig up, Texas. It's my job, man. It's what I do. I need you to know who these people are. So you're with me, right? This is Rod Rosenstein, the little turd. He went after Andy McCabe. They decapitated the FBI and put in Chris Wray. Why is Chris Wray still in that job? That is Joe Biden's Achilles heel. We Democrats need to demand everybody of power in any investigation over the FBI, the DOJ, they all have to be Democrats. They all have to be Democrats. Republicans do not have the character to do this. I appreciate the support, Hula Dancer. I really do. They don't. Because who was Rod Rosenstein's go-to man? Who was his assistant? Who did he make the Associate Attorney General? The Associate Deputy Attorney General. Can anybody guess who Rod Rosenstein's knife man was? Who was Rod Rosenstein's Associate Deputy Attorney General? Robert Hur. It was Robert Hur. Robbie Kaplan should be yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it, Kitty K? Kitty K says Robbie Kaplan should be Attorney General. We're going to push for that. We're going to push for that. We're going to push for some knife fighters. In this second Biden term, we're not doing this shit anymore. Robert Hur was Rod Rosenstein's knife man. That's who that's who Robert Hur was. He was the associate deputy district attorney. So when Rod Rosenstein took over for Jeff Sessions, remember Jeff Sessions got shown the door, and Rod Rosenstein started to decapitate all the rhinos for Trump. Think the 2025 project. Think let's put sycophants in place. Robert Hur was his knife man. He was also the liaison between Rod Rosenstein and Robert Mueller. Remember how long it took to get the Mueller report? And how when they got the Mueller report, they rewrote it. They lied about what was in it. Robert Hur was the liaison between Rod Rosenstein and Bob Mueller. That's who Robert Hur is. He's not a babe in the woods. He was rewarded for all of this. They made him the U.S. attorney out in Maryland. And we Democrats voted him in unanimously. Gave him the job. What the hell's wrong with us? No, never again. Never again. No more Republican special counsels ever. If there's a Republican that needs to be investigated, they say, well, we got to have a Republican special counsel or it won't, or it'll be biased. It'll be biased. Whenever a Democrat needs to be investigated, they say it's got to be a Republican special counsel or it'll be biased. Bullshit. Republicans can never be. Chris Wray needs to be fired and replaced with a Democrat. Joe Biden's second term needs to fire Chris Wray. None of this, oh, they serve out a 10-year term and, we don't get involved in bull. Trump land. The Republicans got into the New York field office. We convicted the head of the New York field office for working for damn Russians. That enough is enough right there to fire Christopher Wray. Fire him. And Merrick Garland, I get it. I get it. When Joe Biden took over, January 6th, it just happened. It was a heated time in the country. They wanted a milquetoast attorney general that wasn't going to be a knife fighter. Thank you for the support, Marcia Clipper. I appreciate you. They needed somebody that wasn't going to be a knife fighter. That's over. That's over. Merrick Garland has to go. He has to go. Merrick Garland appointed Robert Hur, knowing who Robert Hur was. Pastor Gemini says, yeah, what the hell is up with the Dems? Yeah, what the hell is up with us? You need to be demanding that we go after this. You need to be demanding no more Robert Hurs ever. Robert Hur thinks, you know what he thinks he got out of writing that report by pouring gasoline on himself and making him look like a complete idiot? You know what he thinks he got? He thinks he's going to be on the Supreme Court. He thinks Republicans are going to put him on the Supreme Court, just like they did Brett Kavanaugh. Do the dirty work and we reward you. You know, to this day, Republicans are furious that we shot down Robert Bork. Robert Bork was responsible for the Saturday Night Massacre back during the old Watergate thing. He worked for Tricky Dick Nixon. He's the guy that, you know, nobody would fire all of these people for Nixon. Nobody. Robert Bork said, hold my beer, I'll do it. And the Republicans have been butthurt ever since that we would not put Robert Bork on the Supreme Court. Then what do? We put Brett Kavanaugh on there. Did anybody tell you about Brett Kavanaugh and his ties to Ken Starr and what he was, the political hack he was? No, I like beer and the whole sexual assault thing. Has the media told you any of these connections? Did you even know that Robert Hur worked for Rod Rosenstein when Rod Rosenstein was being Trump's knife man? No, they don't. No. They're not going to do it. Peter Campbell says, can always count on the deep facts. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Because they matter. They matter. Who these people are matters. And mark my words, they're going to try to put Robert Hur in a judgeship, a big-time judgeship, then on the Supreme Court. That's what he thinks he got out of this. And we have to stand up as Democrats and say, no more. No more. Rich says, Dems need to quit bringing a covered dish to a fist fight. Amen. Amen. Get the hell off the high road. I want an attorney general in Biden's second term that is going to splay open Republicans and let their guts fall on the deck. I don't get out here and work for Democrats so that I can get a damn Republican appointed special counsel. That's not what I'm fighting for. Either fight with me or resign. No games. I'm done. I'm done. I want Christopher Wray. I want his resignation on the president's desk. I want an attorney general that is a frickin' knife fighter. Not just follows the law, but understands that Republicans will play politics with the Department of Justice. Folks, you don't win wars with arms tied behind your back. You don't. We've got to fight. And for them to fight, we need you people, you folks to pick up the phone, and you need to let them know that you'll stick with them. Because right now, Democrats, I talk to these people, folks. I talk to these people. Democrats believe you don't have the stomach for that. They believe that you want to be the good guy. We have our principles. You need to let them know. Enough is enough. Exactly. Enough is enough. We want political fighters. We want guys like Adam Schiff. We want guys like Adam Schiff. No more, let me tell you about my policy. No. Let me tell you why you're an asshole. But folks, that wasn't the only big news that happened yesterday. There is some crazy, crazy stuff going on. And I won't even say in Ukraine because it's not in Ukraine. Folks, what did I tell you about Alexander Syrski? We're going to see insurgencies. We're going to see a whole new type of war in Ukraine. Russia was invaded yesterday. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Russia was invaded yesterday. The Ukrainian government, see, there were Russians living in Ukraine. There are Russians in Russia who don't support Putin. Navalny had a huge following, folks. He did. Christopher, I feel the same way, brother. Yeah, wrong. There's Ray with a W. Folks, this is insane. Tanks have rolled into Russia. It's fantastic. I told you, Alexander Syrski is a different kind of general. There are Russians that live in Ukraine. There are Russians in Russia that do not support Putin. They have been volunteering with Ukraine, and Ukraine has been training them all winter long, and they formed the Freedom for Russia Legion and the Siberian Brigade. And they are insurgents. They are Russians, Russian-born, Russian-bred Russians, trained in Ukraine to fight. Not like the Russian troops. Not like the Russian troops, folks. These folks have been given real training. The Russians have been conscripting people, giving them 2 days worth of training, showing them how to put a uniform on and sending them to the front. This is what the Russians do, folks. They take these conscripts and they say, you see that building over there on the other side of that field? That's our objective. You run there. And they take off running. One wave takes off running, and they just get mowed down, and they reach a ditch in the field. They say, next wave, go. And they keep doing that until they get enough people in the ditch. And then folks in that ditch, they take off to the next ditch and they get mowed down. Meanwhile, and it's just wave after wave of men getting slaughtered with no training whatsoever. It's just literally overwhelmed them with the number of men we're willing to let die. The Ukrainians overheat their barrels. They run out of shells. They shoot so many of these Russians. Well, these Russians are not all digging it, man. They're volunteering to fight on behalf of Ukraine, and a revolution has started in Russia. The Freedom for Russia Brigade have taken territory and are holding territory inside Russia. Let's go to the map. This is the Belgorod, Russia area. They've moved on Belgorod and Kursk. They've poured across the border. Let me show you where we are in Ukraine. This is Ukraine. You see the outline of Ukraine here. Here in the center, moving in northeastern Ukraine in the Kharkiv region. This is the city of Kursk up here, and this is the city of Belgorod down here. In these two areas, over here and down here by Belgorod, the Freedom for Russia Legion has poured across the border and have started to they've taken Shetnikova, Krasny, and they're moving their way north to Belgorod. They've been attacking Belgorod, shelling Belgorod. They've been hit with drone attacks, and they're moving their way northeastern. Same thing over here in Kursk, in the Kursk area. You see, and I want you to take a look at the proximity of Kursk. Here's Kursk up here in the center of the screen. Now this is Kursk. Let me back it out. Due north of Kursk is Moscow. There are Belarusians volunteering for Ukraine, but the Siberian Brigade is much more interesting. I've told you, you've got the Ural Mountains here that separate me show you terrain. You've got the Ural Mountains here, and then you've got the Siberian Plains out here. There are a dozen ethnic groups in the Siberian area that are done being exploited. They are more than done being exploited. They're tired of their land being raped. They have been flowing into Ukraine. They've been being trained all winter long. Syrskyi, I told you there will be counterinsurgencies, and there is a revolution that has started in Russia yesterday. And I am here for it. We're just getting the action reports back to see how well they're doing. It is really something, folks. It is really something. The Russians don't know what to do with this, and they're freaking out. They're dropping their weapons and they're running. They're leaving their tanks and APCs behind. And the Freedom for Russia Legion, or the Russia Freedom Legion, is they're shortening it. They've got a presence on social media. You can go to XChan and just do a search for Freedom for Russia Legion. And they're actually fundraising. They're asking for Bitcoin. They're fundraising to support the recruitment efforts because it's growing. It's growing. And the beautiful part about this is made possible by us. This is made possible by us. Ukraine doesn't have the resources to really run a successful counterinsurgency without our support. This is what the Republicans have been trying to kill. We have made it possible for the Ukrainians to take Russian equipment to give to Russians. They roll across these borders with tanks, my friend, with tanks. We made that possible. Us and our European allies. They handed T-80s to the Freedom for Russia Legion, and we gave them Leopards. We gave them Abrams. And I tell you, I couldn't be more proud of these folks. Don't get me wrong. Don't misunderstand. Just like Navalny, I will tell you, he's not your friend. Navalny was not your friend. He was Russian. He was a Russian imperialist. He very much believes in Russia. These groups are very pro-Russian. They are not pro-Western. They aren't. Don't misunderstand. The Freedom for Russia Legion wants a glorified, huge Russia. They just don't like Putin. The Siberian Brigade, they want autonomy. This is going to be a bloody mess if they succeed. It really is, because it's going to tear Russia apart, and I am here for it. I am here for it. But I just wanted you to know we're gonna watch that closely, see how they're doing. It appears that they're gaining support on the ground. Like I said, the security officers, the police inside Russia are throwing their weapons down and running. The military are throwing their weapons down and running. So they're picking up equipment quite quickly. They're now laying siege to Volgograd. The Russian news has been amazing on this. It's been amazing. They put out a report. There were reports that have come out that drone attacks have occurred on 6 different oil refineries. The Russians put out that they repelled those drone attacks and they were not successful. As they are giving that retort, their anchor is sitting in front of a picture of a burning oil refinery. These 6 oil refineries, they repelled the Ukrainian drone attack, but these 6 oil refineries just spontaneously burst into flames on their own, and 2 of them are still burning right now. That's Russia for you, folks. That is Russia for you. Oh my goodness. I told you this summer is going to be Ukraine's summer. Their Air Force is being reconstituted. The F-16s are being delivered. The training is done. All we have to do is defeat the Republicans. We just have to show them they are being defeated. You have to get loud, folks. You have to make phone calls. You have to scream, get the Ukraine funding done. You're going to lose. There's a revolution in Russia started right now. You know, Russia is interfering in our election. Let's just say it. They're just straight up bribing Republicans. They're interfering in our election. All of this border talk, those came out of Russian troll farms. Those were amplified in Russian troll farms. I showed you the article from Wired that absolutely showed that they're 100% amplified out of Russian troll farms all over social media. Linda Orndorff says, what I'm upset about is hundreds of thousands of Americans jumped on the phone and called Congress about banning TikTok, but no one has the time to call and force them to bring Ukraine aid for vote. Yeah, 100%. But it's the right-wingers that want to ban TikTok. They're terrified of TikTok. Look what happened to Katie Britt. You had an independent journalist who first released his report on Katie Britt lying on TikTok. That's where it first broke. That terrifies Republicans. Why? Look at Robert Hur. Is the corporate media telling you anything about Robert Hur? Anything at all? Is he? Is he telling you anything? Are they telling you anything? James Griffin says there's a $100 million emergency munitions bill signed yesterday by yeah, but the aid they need starts with a B. If they're going to fight this war, they need billions in aid, not millions. They need billions in aid. You know, we spend close to $80 billion a year on our military. It's going to cost us $4 or $5 billion to defeat our greatest geopolitical enemy. Bargain. 100%. And I agree with you. It is a start. It is a start. And kudos to Joe Biden for doing everything he can to make sure we're not abandoning our neighbors in Ukraine. And Greg Edmond, yeah, Canada is stepping up. Europe is stepping up. Sweden, the newest member of NATO, stepping up. Finland, stepping up. Denmark. Everybody was worried about that right-wing nut that got elected, Geertz. They're handing over F-16s like crazy. And then they're replacing those F-16s with F-35s. They're buying our F-35s. Being made here. France, there you go. James Griffin, France. France is saying, hey, we'll send troops, man. Do it, Russia. Do it. Invade Odessa, and there will be you'll be fighting French troops. Finland said, that's the Prime Minister of Finland. They said, do you know that they're using your weapons? It was a Russian reporter working for the Russian government that said, do you know that your weapons that you're giving to Ukraine are being used in Russia? And Finland said, yeah, we never told them they could. Good to see you too, Lillian Ari. She says, nice to see you, Texas Paul. Keep up the good work. We are. But yeah, that's what's going on. That is breaking. That is just happening. The blue and white flags are Russian insurgents, Russian-born, Russian-bred, Ukrainian-trained, Ukrainian-equipped insurgents that have crossed the border into Russia and has started a revolution in Russia, and I am here for it. Now we need to talk about a little bit of domestic policy for a second to wrap the show up today. Folks, you support me in what I do. I get it all the time from the right wingers. You're a paid Democratic shill. And then they show pictures of me at the White House and shit like that. And they're like, you're paid. The Democrats don't pay me. They do not. You folks support me. That is not true on the right. That is not true on the right. On the right, you have the Billionaire Frat Boys Club that 100% absolutely funds the right-wing social media, YouTube, X-Chan, all of that, all of these talking heads that you see, they have commercials run from right-wing corporations. Hey, can you bring that up? I didn't get a chance to read it yet. I just wanted to finish this point and then I'll read it. They are absolutely funded. I mean, you're talking six figures, folks. These are well-paid individuals, and their job is to get a message out. Walter Klopp says, heard the truckers in New York are not delivering. Yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah, that's not true. That's bullshit. But I want you to pay attention because this is coming out in the right-wing media sphere. These guys are absolutely paid by the Republican establishment. Their big donors pay these folks to put these messages out. It's AstroTurf. This is not bottom grown. And this is what they're telling you, folks. They're going to have this fight, this election.
And let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. It's totally crazy. Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president. Hey, Joe Biden is 81 years old. The retirement age in the United States at which you start to receive Social Security and you are eligible for Medicare is 65. Joe Biden has technically been eligible for Social Security and Medicare for 16 years, and he wants to continue in office until he is 86, which is 19 years past when he would be eligible for retirement. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. And let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. It's totally crazy. Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president. Hey, Joe Biden is 81 years old. The retirement age in the United States at which you start to receive.
This is Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is a big-time talking head on the right. He has a huge audience. He is very well funded. They pay for his studio. As you see, he's associated with the Daily Wire. They're coming for your Social Security, folks. They are coming for your Social Security. 100%. And they're making the case for it on the right. This isn't for you. This isn't meant for you. This is meant for Trumpers. You know, the 2025 project scares the hell out of you. But to Trumpers, they've explained, oh, well, the government's broken. We've got to blow it up. We've got to tear it up. And all the Trumpers are like, oh, yeah, good idea. Destroy the government. Yeah, it needs to be destroyed. It needs to be destroyed. This is the next talking point. You're all much healthier now. It's crazy that you're retiring at 65. We need to take those benefits away. Just stupid Democrats can't run the government. And then they're going to kill Social Security, just like they did abortion. Folks, it's not hyperbole. It's not a joke. It's not WWE wrestling. They're really doing this. They are really doing this, folks. And you have to be a participant. You have to be a soldier in this fight. We have to have our own January 6th sans violence. We have to scare the shit out of these Republicans. We cannot be high road. We can't. I need you to get on the phone, not just watch the show and enjoy yourself, get informed. I need you to get on the phone, and I need you to steel up these Democrats' spines. Tell them you're here for the fight. You're here for it. You're down for it. Absolutely. Let's see some knife fighters in the DOJ. Let's see a Democrat running the FBI. Not some Republican that, oh, we can trust him. He's unbiased. No, bull. They're all biased. I want somebody in there's biased towards me for a change. But we don't get it if you don't do it. We don't get it if you don't do it. There's over 4,000 of you watching right now. 40,000 people are going to watch this video. Pick up the damn phone. That will terrify them. That will terrify them. These phone calls take 5 minutes to get through the switchboard, and you're going to end up leaving a message or talking to a staffer. If they make you leave a message in one office, call another office. They all have 5 or 6 offices. Make sure you talk to a person. Tie up a human being so that that human being rolls up the chain of command and says, you know, I'm getting a lot of freaking phone calls. Make them aware. That's your job. I come out here, I tell you what's going on. I tell you who these people are. Your job to act on it, folks. And that's why I love spending time with you, because this isn't just hyperbole and entertainment. We get it done. Well, that's what I've got for you today. That's today's show. I'm glad you could be here. I hope you enjoyed it. Uncle Chuck, I cannot post 435 phone numbers. Find out what district you're in. Call your congressman. Call your congressman. Learn who your local state representative is. Call them. Call your senator. There are only 2 in your state. Call both of them. They both represent you. They don't split the state up. Both your senators represent you. Call them. Let them know you want Ukraine funding. Let them know. I don't care if you're talking to a Republican. Tell them you're done with Republicans running the FBI. You're done with Republicans running the DOJ. You're done with it. No more Republican special counsels, because they cannot be honest brokers. Scare the hell out of them. Let them know you're watching. Love you, folks. This is Old Texas Paul out. Enjoy some Texas cities at night.